Amir had always believed he understood the rules of love, loyalty, consistency, and partnership built through quiet evenings and shared routines. For 3 years, he had been in a committed relationship with Zara, a woman who filled their small apartment with fresh jasmine flowers and warm laughter. They had built something stable together, something predictable, something society would applaud. Yet, somewhere inside, Amir felt a part of himself drifting, like a ship that had loosened its anchor but remained close to the shore simply out of habit. Across town, in a neighborhood alive with color and careless nighttime chatter, lived Rahim, Amir's closest friend since college. Rahim was everything Amir wasn't: spontaneous, unfiltered, and emotionally fearless. He spoke his truths without apology and embraced life like the world owed him nothing but possibility. Their friendship had always been a safe place for Amir, a place where he could breathe without performing the role expected of him. Over the past few months, their lives had begun intersecting more often. Amir found excuses to stop by Rahim's apartment on his way home, helping fix a shelf, sharing tea, or simply sitting together while the sun surrendered to the city lights. It became a ritual he didn't want to question. When Rahim suggested that Amir stay over after a late-night movie marathon, Amir laughed it off, yet he agreed. "It's closer to your office anyway," Rahim had said casually, though a subtle warmth flickered behind his eyes. That first night sleeping in the same room, 2 mattresses pulled close on the floor, felt strangely comforting to Amir. The darkness wrapped around them like a secret that didn't need words. He sensed the quiet awareness growing between them, a silent acknowledgement neither dared name. Amir told himself it was nothing, 2 friends, exhausted after a long day. Still, as he drifted to sleep, he noticed how much easier it was to rest beside Rahim than alone. Days turned into weeks, and their sleepovers became frequent, so frequent that Amir stopped pretending they were accidental. He brought extra clothes to Rahim's place. Toothpaste. A second pair of shoes. Small objects that made it feel less like a visit and more like a temporary home. Zara noticed the changes. She would ask harmless questions: "Why are you coming home so late?" or "You didn't sleep well, are you stressed at work?" Amir answered with soft lies, hoping his voice sounded convincing. Rahim never pushed, never pried, yet his presence made everything inside Amir unravel. They shared whispered conversations long after midnight, confessions that belonged to no one else. Rahim's laughter filled the emptiness Amir never admitted existed. When the world outside grew silent, Amir found himself studying Rahim's expressions, how his eyes softened when he smiled, how his voice quieted when emotions lingered unspoken. One evening, while rain tapped gently against the windows, Amir lingered by the door, keys still in his hand. He thought about going back to Zara, about the responsibilities waiting for him, about the man he had always assumed he should be. Rahim stepped closer and lifted an eyebrow in playful challenge. "You don't want to go," he said, not as a question but as a truth. Amir exhaled, releasing a tension he hadn't realized he was holding. "I just don't want to be alone tonight." Rahim's reply came soft, almost tender. "Then don't be." It was that simple. That dangerous. They shared dinner, nothing fancy, just reheated leftovers, and laughed about insignificant things. But underneath the effortless conversation lived a growing tension, a magnetic pull Amir tried to resist and failed. When the lights went out, the silence between their mattresses felt louder than words. Amir's heart beat faster than he wanted Rahim to hear. He sensed the closeness, the inevitability of something shifting. And for the first time, he didn't push the feeling away. That he lay awake longer than usual, staring at the faint glow creeping through the curtains. He knew this wasn't innocent anymore. He knew he was stepping into a space where loyalty blurred and desires surfaced. Yet he stayed. Not because he needed a place to sleep, but because he needed Rahim. Just before sleep finally claimed him, Rahim whispered into the quiet room, "You look happier here." The words lingered in the air like a promise. Amir was terrified to speak aloud, but he didn't argue, and that silence said everything. Amir woke the next morning to the soft rustling of Rahim making breakfast in the kitchen. The aroma of cardamom tea drifted through the apartment, mingling with the quiet hum of music playing from Rahim's phone. It felt like a version of domestic life Amir had never allowed himself to imagine, peaceful, unforced, intimate without needing to be defined. He watched Rahim for a moment, admiring the ease in his movements, the natural light catching the gentle curve of his smile. That morning became a pattern. Amir would wake up next to Rahim's calm presence, feeling lighter, as if part of him was finally allowed to exist. But every time he returned to Zara, guilt gripped him like a hand around his chest. She tried to bridge the distance, surprise lunches at his workplace, asking if he wanted to plan a weekend getaway. She sensed the shift, though she couldn't name it. And Amir, afraid of hurting her, offered half-truths wrapped in affection that felt more hollow each day. One evening, Zara prepared his favorite meal, spiced lentils and garlic naan. She sat across from him at their small dining table, searching his eyes for recognition, hoping to spark the warmth that once came so easily. Amir forced a smile, but his thoughts were elsewhere, on the way Rahim laughed when he burned toast, on the deep conversations they shared at 2 a.m., on the comfort that never required him to pretend, "Are we okay?" Zara asked finally, her voice trembling with vulnerability. Amir hesitated only a second, but even that pause echoed louder than any answer he could give. "We're fine," he said, but the words tasted like dishonesty. That night, guilt did not keep him home. He returned to Rahim's apartment, claiming he needed space to clear his mind. Rahim didn't question it, he simply opened the door, and Amir stepped into a reality he preferred. Their connection grew rapidly, like a storm gathering force with every passing night. Conversations deepened. Boundaries faded. Rahim would sit closer, their shoulders brushing. Amir would linger on Rahim's touch a moment longer than friendship required. These small intimacies became threads in a tapestry neither of them had planned but both desperately needed. One late night, while the city outside pulsed with life, Amir and Rahim found themselves lying on the floor again, but this time the space between them felt almost unbearable. Amir's heart pounded with truths he could no longer deny. Rahim turned toward him, eyes searching, and there was no laughter this time, only sincerity carved into every line of his expression. "Why do you keep coming back?" Rahim asked quietly. His voice was gentle, but the question carried weight. Amir swallowed hard, unable to look away. "Because I feel like myself here," he said, each word a confession. "With you, I don't have to hide." Rahim's expression softened, his breath unsteady. "And with Zara?" Amir didn't respond immediately. He closed his eyes, struggling to separate love from duty, desire from expectation. "She deserves someone who knows what he wants," he whispered. "And you?" Rahim asked. "What do you want, Amir?" The room held its breath. Amir's chest ached with the truth he had fought for years. He opened his eyes and met Rahim's gaze, fear and longing colliding inside him. "I want to stop being afraid." That was the moment their lives changed, not through a dramatic declaration, but through honesty finally spoken aloud. Rahim reached out, gently placing a hand over Amir's. The touch was simple, yet it grounded them both, anchoring a truth that had been drifting unclaimed for too long. Amir felt electricity shoot through him, hope and dread intertwined. "You're not alone," Rahim murmured. "Not anymore." Amir held on to that promise like it was the first real thing he had ever owned, but the world outside their small sanctuary continued spinning, carrying consequences neither of them could ignore. Zara's messages multiplied, concern growing into confusion, then slowly into suspicion. Friends began asking questions. Amir found himself dodging invitations and avoiding explanations. Every step closer to Rahim was a step further from the life he had built. Still, each night he chose Rahim again. The internal conflict deepened, no longer a quiet ache but a relentless storm. Love, whatever form it was becoming, made demands that could not coexist. Every stolen glance, every shared silence, every heartbeat between them pulled Amir toward a truth that threatened to break the life he had promised to another, yet he followed it willingly, because for the first time, the thought of choosing himself didn't feel selfish. It felt necessary. Amir's double life could not continue unnoticed. The divide between his two worlds, the life he was expected to live and the life he longed for, grew sharper each day. Zara watched him with increasing uncertainty, her eyes silently demanding answers he wasn't ready to give. And Rahim, though patient, carried a growing fear that their fragile happiness existed only in borrowed time. One evening, Zara insisted they talk. She sat beside Amir on their living room sofa, hands clasped tightly together, as if holding on to the last threads of their relationship. The jasmine scent she loved filled the room, but instead of comfort, Amir felt suffocated by the familiarity. Zara took a breath, steadying her voice. "Do you love me?" she asked, not accusing, but pleading. Amir's heart twisted painfully. He cared for her deeply, but the love she needed was no longer his to give. "I do," he replied softly, "but not in the way you deserve." Zara's eyes glistened. "Then tell me the truth," she whispered. "Where does your heart go when you're not here?" Silence answered first, heavy, undeniable. Amir looked down, unable to hide anymore. "It goes to Rahim," he said finally. The world seemed to still. Zara didn't gasp or shout. She simply inhaled as though trying to absorb the impact without shattering. "I knew," she murmured, her voice a fragile thread. "I just didn't want to believe it." Amir apologized again and again, each word drenched in remorse. Yet even in heartbreak, Zara showed grace. She stood, wiping quiet tears from her cheeks, and spoke with dignity. "You don't have to be sorry for who you are," she said. "But you do have to stop pretending." Her strength humbled him. For the first time in months, he felt clarity instead of conflict. That night, Amir packed a small bag, just the essentials. Zara didn't watch him leave, she didn't need to. The echo of the closing door marked an ending neither of them had ever imagined, but both knew was necessary. Outside, the night air felt colder than usual. Amir walked the familiar path to Rahim's apartment, each step trembling with fear and hope intertwined. By the time he reached the door, nerves pulsed through him. What if Rahim didn't want something so complicated? What if love was easier only when it was stolen? Rahim opened the door before Amir even knocked, as if he had been waiting. His eyes widened at the sight of the bag. "Amir," he breathed, surprise and uncertainty flickering together. Amir stepped inside, vulnerability laid bare. "I told her," he said, voice unsteady. "Everything." Rahim's expression softened, not triumphant, not relieved, but filled with empathy for the pain that truth demands. He pulled Amir into a quiet embrace, offering comfort without questioning his choice. "You didn't have to do that for me," Rahim murmured. "I didn't," Amir replied, resting his forehead against Rahim's shoulder. "I did it for me. For who I want to be." Those words marked the beginning of something fragile yet real. And though the road ahead was uncertain, Amir felt grounded for the first time, not hiding, not running, simply living honestly. Weeks passed, and life slowly reshaped itself. Amir and Rahim built a home from small everyday rituals, morning tea shared by the window, late-night conversations that still stretched longer than sleep, laughter that filled the corners of a life now fully chosen. There were challenges, society's stares, friends' confused questions, moments of doubt, but love persisted, patient and unashamed. One evening, while the sun set in hues of rose and amber, Rahim and Amir stood on the rooftop overlooking the city. The world buzzed below them, but the wind carried peace. Rahim nudged Amir gently. "Do you regret any of it?" he asked. Amir considered the past, the heartbreak, the fear, the pain of letting go. Then he looked at Rahim, the person who had given him the courage to be honest with himself. "No," Amir replied. "The hardest choices led me here." Rahim smiled, brushing a hand against his. "Then we choose each other," he said. "Every day." Amir nodded, feeling the weight of that promise settle warmly in his chest, that he had stepped away from the safety of familiarity into a love both terrifying and true. And as the evening breeze wrapped around them, he realized he didn't need certainty to feel whole, that he simply needed to stop being afraid.